All right. Okay. I'd like to welcome everybody here for our monthly board meeting. It is good to see a lot of those out that normally come. We're glad that you could be here. And item number 5 is our first list that we come to is items of consent. And what's the privilege of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we approve the items of consent.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye. Raise your hand. All right. It's 5, 4, and 1 absent this time, Jennifer. All righty. Item number C was for Reverend Tyler, and he is not here. So we're going to move on to our next, which is item number 6, is the resolution honoring Robert Clark for the Board of Zoning Appeals. He's retiring. But Mr. Clark has had a medical emergency come up, and he can't make it. So hopefully we can do this at another meeting at another time. But let's keep Mr. Clark in prayer with his medical emergency. Our next item number 7 is our monthly report on delinquent tax collections. We got Scott Grindstaff with us. Scott? Grindstaff? Is that Grindstaff? Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Good to meet you, sir.
This is the report. As of October 31st, the personal property collection, we collected 91.92% of the 22 personal property bills. We collected $67,177 during the month. Real estate collection as of October 31st, we have collected 95.80% of the 22 real estate taxes. We collected $81,037 during the month. Since January 2023, TACS has collected $1,020,536. And so far in November, we've had 23 DMV stops collected. I think I reported last month, the real estate bills are out and they're coming in. We've got all the mail caught up on that. So, and deadline is December 5th, which is a week from Tuesday, I believe.
Today.
December 5th.
Yeah, week from today.
Yep.
Week from today. So that's our real estate deadline. So we should have a whole lot more to report next month.
Thank you, Mr. Grindstaff. Anybody have any questions? Mr. Grindstaff? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to item number 8, consideration for extension of personal property taxes, payments, deadlines for the Commissioner of Revenue. And I think, Mr. Powell, that you have a statement on that?
Yeah, I'll take that one. Thank
Okay, I'm sorry.
Commissioner of Revenue Linda Love has requested an extension of the payment deadline for the 2023 personal property taxes. According to the Henry County Code, all personal property levies and taxes are due by December 5th each year. However, Mrs. Love has indicated that her office faced challenges over the past year, causing a delay in generating the file needed for billing. In light of this information, staff recommends the board consider extending the payment deadline to February 5th, 2024 for personal property tax.
Okay, and there was attachment from Ms. Love's office. If we need to read that there. You got that, Deborah?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
What's that?
Make a motion to extend the
Go ahead, sir.
payment deadline for personal property taxes until February 5th, 2024.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your hand. 5, 4, and then 1 absent. All righty, so the next item is item,
Before we get into the
I'm sorry.
I want to briefly introduce a topic, if I may.
Sure.
Last year, I introduced our county staff to an idea I call Next Up November as a way of developing future leaders in our organization. And this year, we fully implemented the Leadership Development Initiative with a goal of identifying and cultivating promising individuals within the county and the BSA, preparing them for future leadership roles. During this month-long initiative, we allowed employees to serve in key positions, providing them with invaluable exposure to leadership responsibilities and decision-making processes. Through hands-on experience and mentorship from experienced leaders, These next up individuals gain the skills, confidence, and insight necessary to make it easier for them to transition into leadership roles when the time comes. So as part of our Next Up November initiative, if it's okay with the board, I would like for Deputy County Administrator J.R. Powell to present the financial items on the agenda.
Absolutely. That sounds great. All righty, I think Ms. Buchanan has stepped out. You want to go ahead and proceed?
Yes.
Okay. All right, well, let's move to item number 9, which is our financial matters. Let me just get to it here right quick. Item number 9A is an additional appropriations of the Justin Assistant Grant for the Sheriff's Office. Mr. Powell?
Sheriff Wayne Davis is asking the board to appropriate grant funds in the amount of $18,448 that was received from an Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistant Grant, commonly referred to as JAG grant. The grant funds will be used for overtime hours to provide high-impact law enforcement in areas experiencing increased crime. And I believe Sheriff Davis is here with us. Should the board have any questions?
Okay, what is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, make a motion to approve the additional appropriation of $18,448 received from the Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant.
Second.
All right. Wait till he gets up here right quick.
Y'all didn't hold that meeting up for me, did you?
No, we're right now getting ready to take a vote. All you have to do is say yay. No, I'm kidding.
Which one we on?
We're on item number 9A.
Okay.
All right. All right, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say, raise your hand, please. 5-0, Jennifer. 1 absent. All right, and next is item 9B, which is award a contract of a replacement vehicle for the Sheriff's Office. Jerry, Mr. Powell, I'm sorry.
Sure. This is also for the Sheriff's Office. Sheriff Davis is asking the board to award a contract to RK Chevrolet, Inc. in Virginia Beach for the purchase of 2 Chevrolet Silverado police pursuit vehicles totaling $98,964. And funds for this purchase are included in the fiscal year 24 capital improvements plan budget.
Make a motion to award a contract to RK Chevrolet in Virginia Beach for $98,964 to purchase 2 Chevrolet Silverado police pursuit vehicles.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. All in favor, raise your hand, please. Motion 5, 1 absent. All right, item number C, 9C, is an additional appropriation for clerical positions in the clerk of court. Mr. Powell?
Circuit Court Clerk Jennifer Ashworth is asking the board to appropriate miscellaneous refunds and revenues in the amount of $20,700 to cover expenses related to 2 clerical positions for her office.
And what is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, make a motion we approve the additional appropriation of $20,700 for the Circuit Court clerical positions as requested.
Have a second?
Second.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. All in favor, raise your hand. All right, 5, 1 absent. All right, next one is 9D, which is additional appropriations, 1% sales tax funds on new construction and renovation with the school board. Mr. Powell?
The school board is requesting an appropriation of $980,336 from the 1% of the sales tax fund that was designated for new construction and renovation of schools. The school board plans to use $326,400 to fund architectural services related to the construction of field houses at Bassett and Magna Vista High Schools, and $653,936 to replace heating, ventilation, and air conditioning equipment at Rich Acres Elementary School. For the board's information, currently there is $12,096,700 in the 1% of the sales tax fund, and Dr. Lewis is here with us, should you have any questions.
Any questions?
No particular questions, but did want to offer Dr. Blake Lewis or Dr. Boone if they wanted to elaborate or if there's anything they wanted to mention just for public record. If not, no biggie.
Good afternoon. For the 1% sales tax, we are looking at the HVAC system for Rich Acres, and that work hopefully will start this summer. For the field houses, once we get the work back from the architects, we're looking at hopefully the springtime to begin work on that.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. Okay. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, make a motion to approve the appropriation of $980,336 from the 1% sales tax fund for construction and renovation of schools as requested by the school board.
Second. Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your hand. 5 for it and 1 absent. All right. So let's look at item number 9F, additional appropriations for Virginia Outdoor Foundation grants. And Mr. Powell?
Let's see. I believe we skipped one, 9E. Yes, sir.
Well, let's just back this page back down. Maybe I went past it on my... All right. I think what we're looking at right here is the budget amendment, additional state fundings for the school board.
Yes, sir.
How about trying that one?
All right. In September, the Commonwealth of Virginia approved an amended biennial budget that directs an additional $1,494,703 to Henry County's school division. For this reason, the school board is asking the Board of Supervisors to approve amendment to its current fiscal year 2024 operating budget to reconcile the division's budget. With the amendment, Henry County school budget will be $102,513,053, and this amount does not include the textbook or cafeteria funds.
Thank you, Mr. Powell. All righty. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, make a motion to amend the fiscal year 2024 school budget and appropriate the $1,494,703 received from the Commonwealth as requested by the school board.
Second.
All right, have a motion and a second. 5, 1 absent. Okay, now, let's try this one again. 9F, additional appropriations for Virginia Outdoor Foundation grants.
Staff is asking the board to appropriate a grant of $25,000 received from the Virginia Outdoors Foundation for updates to the bike barn located at the Dick and Willie Passage Trail. The grant will be used to increase inventory, update signage, and perform landscaping. The bike barn is a free bike and helmet loan program that gives everyone the opportunity to ride the Dick and Willie Passage. Staff is working on plans to relocate the bike barn from its current location on Doyle Street to Fisher Street in Martinsville to provide safer and better access to the trail.
Okay, and what is the pleasure of the board?
I make a motion to approve the additional appropriation of $25,000 received from the Virginia Outdoors Foundation for updates to the bike barn operations.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, 5 and 1 absent. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I not call for the vote?
Correct.
Did I not call for the vote? No. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me call for a vote, please. All in favor? All right, 5-0. I am so sorry. And then I probably did the same thing then for number E. Let's back up to that right quick. I don't want to miss one. The budget amendment for additional state fundings for the school board. Can I see a show of hands for the approval for that? We had a second and motion. So it's 5 with 1 absent. All righty, let's look at item number 9G. 9G, request for carryover of Wi-Fi 23 county funds.
Staff is asking the board to approve the carryover of committed funds from the fiscal year 23 budget year to the current fiscal year 24 budget. Staff has prepared the attached list of carryover items by cost center. Items on the carryover list are committed items encumbered or obligated from the prior budget year, but the item was not received or the service was not performed prior to June 30th. It also includes unexpended grant funds that may have been awarded in the prior fiscal year and other commitments not completed prior to June 30th. This year's carryover request totals $59,783,517.40, which includes interfund transfers of $9,529,751.78.
Okay, and what is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, make a motion to approve the carryover of $59,783,517.40 from the fiscal year 23 funds to the fiscal year 24 as requested.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your hand.
I have a question.
Oh, excuse me?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, of that carryover, how much of that carryover is not accounted for, will not be used, and what will the, if it's not being used or committed, what will it be used and committed for? Or is that,
So all the funds being carried over are committed or dedicated for a purpose. They're either outstanding purchase orders that were not already finished, the project was not finished. They're grant funds that must be used for a specific purpose and must be carried over to continue that project or purpose. But I will also defer to our Chief Financial Officer, Darrell Jones, to add to that if he will.
Yes, the intent of carryover is all of that money is intended to be used for the purpose of which it was designated for. So otherwise, we would not be carrying it over. So all of those funds have an intended purpose that we plan to use it for.
And some of those funds are already have been expended since July 1st of 2023. These are from the prior to July 1st, 2023, that's being carried over.
so we're still developing that plan, or is it?
Substantial part of the purchase orders that were put in prior to the fiscal year. So there's no guarantee that the purchase order will actually come through. I would say 99% of them would have, been executed in fiscal year 24. Couldn't say 100%, but I would say the majority of them have been, because they were orders or services that were purchase order was put in for. Substantial part of it is grant funds. Of course, those grant funds are dedicated for a specific purpose. That's not to say that we're going to expend 100% of those grants when the grants period ends, but the intent of staff when they get the grant is to expend 100% of those grant funds. Not all grants at the end of the day do we spend every single dollar of the grant, but we try to. So,
And can we assume, like where it's got like salaries and wages, can we assume that those are salaries, wages that were not paid out?
no, none of it's salary wages.
It's
all
grant related.
It's product
Okay.
services.
Yeah, so there are some salaries related to the Senior Services Van Transportation Program that's federally grant funds that must be used for that purpose.
Got you, but it is salaries and wages listed.
That's part of the federal
Got you.
grant program.
Okay, got you.
You can look through the items, they're pretty detailed of what they would be applied to.
Yes.
For example, a refuse truck that's been placed on order hadn't been delivered yet, so we haven't paid for it yet.
And there's like transportation,
Yeah, those
grant receipt.
transportation-related
Okay.
items are those senior services.
I just want to make sure I saw salaries and wages in there and I wasn't,
Yes, but they're salary and wages that are approved by the grant.
Okay.
Can only be spent for the grant purposes.
Okay, great.
Senior services.
I don't know if that was folk who retired or left early and those were funds that were carried over from, pay that they didn't receive. So just wanted clarification. I appreciate it.
Okay, so we had a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your hand. 5, 1 absent. Jennifer? And let's see here. That takes us, I think, to Item number 10, which is our legislation update and consideration for 2024 legislative agenda. And I think that Dale had passed, y'all got a copy of that right there? And I'll turn this over to Dale.
Henry County has engaged Cozen O'Connor Public Strategies to advocate for our interests in Richmond, and particularly items outlined in our legislative agenda. Julia Hammond and Heidi Hurst with Cozen is with us today to provide information about the upcoming General Assembly session, discuss the legislative agenda, and answer any questions you may have. Following the presentation, the staff requested the board provide input and approval of the legislative agenda for 2024. And in your packet, you'll find the proposed legislative agenda drafted with your input and staff's recommendations, as well as recommendations from our Cozen Public Strategies. And we're doing a little bit different this year for our agenda. We have the full agenda packet that's included as 4 pages that we'll make sure our General Assembly representatives have. We'll submit that to them by email. But we want to try something a little different as well. So we have the Reader's Digest version that's in a postcard in front of you that we're going to mail to our General Assembly members to make sure that they have that in their hand and they can see what our main priorities are if it's approved by you all to do that. So that's kind of our plan from here. So if it's okay, I'll ask Julia Hammond and Heidi Hurst to come to the podium and present to you. Thank you.
Good afternoon. We're going to split the time up here in front of you. I'm going to go over sort of the implications of the election on the framework of what we're going to be facing at the General Assembly, and then Heidi will go through some of the highlights from the postcard on the legislative agenda. Obviously, we are working on all of it, but the postcard we'll also be using it for handouts during when you guys participate in Vaco Hill Day and other types of events for the governor's office, et cetera. It's going to kind of be our fun guide. And as a former legislative aide, I can tell you that something like that, different, interesting, the QR code makes people stand up and pay more attention than a multi-page white paper document. But for the election, somebody gave me this stat just the other day that the last time we had this much change at the General Assembly was a century ago. There has been a lot of news and impact made on the shift, in particular the Republicans losing the majority in the House. But the gap between the House, between the Republicans and the Democrats in each body closed by 1. So we went from 22-18 to 21-19, and we went from 52-48 to 51-49, which means to get anything accomplished, we don't necessarily have to worry about all of the new kids because there are 34 new members of the House, 34 of 100, and 17 of 40 in the Senate. But our focus is going to be, and has been all along, working with those who've been there the longest, the institutional knowledge. They're the ones who work most closely with the staff. They're the ones who are going to chair the committees. So we have a lot of change. But when it comes to the leadership and those who've been there, thankfully for many of the committees we work with, those individuals have been on those committees for years. They've heard our story. They know the progress we've made. And so we will have allies there. But just interesting note, with the shift in party control in the House and then the change in makeup in the Senate, the leadership teams have been identified, and the Democratic leadership in both the House and the Senate is completely made up of legislators from Northern Virginia or Hampton Roads. Difference on the GOP leadership side, rural Virginia is what dominates the leadership teams for both the House and the Senate. And of course, your own Senator Bill Stanley was reelected as whip for the Senate Republican caucus. So lucky to have somebody who's still in leadership. And that, again, while it is the minority party, it is barely that. And so his role is going to continue to be very, very important in furthering the agenda of Henry County. The crazier change, honestly, is in the committee makeup with so many new members. I'll give you an example. The Senate Rules Committee, Senate committees have 17 members on them. There will be 11 new members of the Senate Rules Committee. Many of those individuals they didn't come from or they may or may not have come from the House, but they are brand new to the process, and they'll be setting the rules governing not just the makeup and the performance of the General Assembly, but the boards and commissions that the governor submits names for. They will be over all of that, and so many new faces. The same is true on the House side. Most House committees have 22 members. There is no committee with, how do I phrase this? There are at least 9 new members of every single House committee. A committee is made up of 22, with the largest being 13 members of the House Education Committee will be brand new to the process. While we did have some House members move over to the Senate, they like to say up to the Senate, but change bodies, so they're taking their institutional knowledge with them. There are only 2 members, this new freshman class in the House, that have any previous experience at the General Assembly. So 2 of 34 have served in that body or the Senate before. So there is a lot of new. Knowing that there'd be that much change, we spent the bulk of the summer and fall pre-election working with the administration and senior members of the House and the Senate on issues of interest to Henry County, trying to make sure to the best of our ability that those items were going to be included in the governor's proposed budget, which comes out December 20th, and then working with on those issues that may or may not be in there, making sure we have champions in the House and Senate who are ready to introduce their own budget amendments or co-patron legislation that'll help. And Heidi will go through those items. But while we were waiting to figure out who the new players, our teammates were going to be at the House and Senate, we made sure to work with those that we knew were returning to make sure we had the best foot forward as we attempt, starting the second Wednesday in January, to educate a whole lot of new people on our issues while they are learning everything else that goes on there. So if you have any questions for me, or we can wait until after Heidi goes through her portion.
Hi, good afternoon. Heidi Hertz. I'm the other half of the Julia and Heidi party that we brought from Richmond. Love to say that this is, I think, the second time in 2 weeks I've been in Henry County, which that means it's been a really good month for me. So appreciate the hospitality a couple of weeks ago. But Julia mentioned there's a lot of change happening at the General Assembly, and a lot of them will impact how we phrase and frame some of the priorities that Henry County has. And so really appreciate being able to work with Mr. Wagner and his team on fully developing what the legislative priorities are, creating that smaller list, but then also the larger, more comprehensive list that we can reference. So I wanted to touch on a couple of those, primarily ones that when we've looked through the budget requests that agencies have made to the governor, but then also some of the priorities that we know legislators locally have. A couple of dates to keep in mind as I'm going through this. December 20th, so any numbers that I share or we share that talk about what agencies have asked for, we will see if that comes to fruition on December 20th when Governor Youngkin releases his proposed biennium budget. So that is a really exciting, almost a Christmas morning, not quite Christmas morning situation, especially if you see things you've been wanting in there. And then also, as Julia mentioned, we'll hit the road running when General Assembly comes to town on January 10th. So those are 2 really big dates that we have circled on our calendar. So thinking about economic development, which the incredible investment that Henry County has put into your industrial sites and the high tier level of those industrial sites, building off of the announcement from early in 2023, I think on VDP's additional funding for the Commonwealth Crossings business site, we'll continue to advocate for some of VEDP's funds that they've asked for to continue those programs and investing in those economic development sites. As someone from Southside Virginia, I know that there's a lot of competition from our friends down south in North Carolina, and so part of our story is about making sure that we're continuing our competitiveness with our neighboring states and building up those economic development sites. Linked to that, and I know housing's at the bottom of that card list, but one of the things that we saw, that we've discussed a lot with rural Virginia, is that we can have these incredible economic development opportunities and we can try to bring in the businesses that want to locate there, but if there's no housing, that's a huge issue for those businesses wanting to come in town. And so one of the things that the Department of Housing and Community Development has put in their budget proposal is $50 million to support housing around the large industrial site projects. And so identifying that as a need and figuring out a way to fix that, that's something that we'll be looking at to see if that makes it into the governor's budget. If it doesn't, there may be a legislator from, I would imagine, down the Southside Virginia, Southwest, the Valley, that might want to think about putting that back in as a budget amendment, and something that rural Virginia has long advocated for, that housing is a huge part, whether it's for these mega sites, but then also for things like teachers and others that we want to move into our counties. For recreation, so the reason I was here 2 weeks ago, it was a lovely event at Ferrystone State Park, where the Department of Conservation and Recreation, we've been staying in close contact. Mr. Wagner, we had a nice meeting with them in Richmond to talk about where Mayo River is on this list of priorities for the agency, and they are thrilled to share, and they shared with us that night, that Mayo River is next for the master planning process, which is really exciting. Last year, we did work with Delegate Williams to put in a budget amendment to try and help speed that process along. Unfortunately, that amendment was not successful, but in our efforts there, DCR, I think, realized how critical this was for Henry County and how committed we are. What they've asked for Henry County and for us to do is start thinking about, if we're next for master planning, how do we help secure some of the startup funds that they'll need to get the initial teams hired, the initial equipment necessary for Mayo River. And so we'll stay in close contact with DCR. They've made some asks in their budget proposals for that, and so we'll look to see if we can get those over the finish line, if it's included in the governor's budget, or work with the local legislative delegation to see if we can try and secure some of those funds. From what Director Wells was saying, I think it's 1.5 million is what the startup looks like. Right now, staffing, and y'all probably know this, is coming from Ferrystone to check on the property every once in a while. For education, we'll continue to look for priority areas like maintaining and increasing teacher salaries and also funding for SROs. That will be something that, working with the Democratic caucus in both chambers, framing what SROs' responsibilities are, but then also making sure that we're providing funding where those are needed. I know that's something that the state has asked localities to do, but hasn't always provided the adequate funding to make that happen. Transportation is another big one. That's a place where we'll work with both with the General Assembly, but also the Commonwealth Transportation Board, on making sure that we're trying to find ways to fund those improvements so that some of these incredible industrial sites, one in particular in Henry County, would have the trifecta of rail, air, and travel by land, which is a really unique opportunity for this area. So we'll continue to keep that one top of mind. And then lastly, it wasn't on the top sheet, but did want to say one of the things that in working with DCR, they have requested significant funding for dam safety and improvement. I think $50 million is something that they're trying to secure statewide. That would be something that we would keep our eye on from the executive branch side to watch for. So, all that to say, we really enjoy representing Henry County and Richmond, and appreciate when we have opportunities to engage. I think Supervisor Diller, we were at VACO together, which was really nice, and so opportunities to interact and have you come to town really help bolster the messages and what we're trying to accomplish on behalf of the county. So, what questions do you have?
All right. Have any questions from the board?
I do have a question.
I thought you might have a question.
And I'm just very inquisitive. In here, the detailed report, it says Henry County advocates for increased support for public education, emphasizing competitive salaries for teachers and paraprofessionals, and on down it mentions increased funding for local law enforcement. And my question is actually two questions, one question, but it's worded two different ways. Does it benefit us to show the work that we're doing to fulfill those two that I mentioned and everything else that's mentioned in here? But also, will legislators inquire about what is Henry County doing, and are they doing the most that they can do to fulfill this before we actually jump in and assist?
Absolutely. Legislators will absolutely ask that question, because a lot of times, and you'll see from the new chairs and leadership of these committees, they come from Northern Virginia and Hampton Roads, and so it's really easy for Fairfax County to talk about all that they're doing and their needs and why they need more. So to have those types of stats and be like, slow down. Henry County is doing absolutely everything they can, but these unfunded...
Could you repeat that one more time?
We do. Henry County is doing absolutely everything they can, but we cannot, when cost to compete is a great one. Fairfax County never wants to give up a cent of that or let any other funding for other parts of the Commonwealth of Virginia happen if it means it's going to hurt anything about the cost to compete. And so the messaging we like to say is, we get you're competing with DC, Maryland, we're competing with North Carolina, and you, quite frankly, Fairfax, and so that we deserve a little bit of help to some leveling of this playing field. But yes, anytime that there is, we can show how For example, when the pay raises come out, and obviously the media always likes to talk about the state has funded these pay raises and usually leaves out the line about how it's a match and the locality has to put it up if you're going to be able to draw down any of the money. When we have the story of what Henry has gone, the lengths Henry has gone to be able to provide those raises, especially if it means a shifting of dollars away from something else, to show the level of importance. Having that detail is very helpful to us in Richmond and will be even more helpful this year given how many new members are coming. And most of those people are not teachers. Very few of them come from local government to really understand what these state level decisions do to local governments, especially on the unfunded mandate part, which I love is still on the agenda as an absolute heck no.
Any other thing? Thank you, Ms. Hammond. How do you pronounce your last name? Hammond?
Hammond Hertz.
And Hertz. I know how it hurts.
Sound like a law firm that we're
Hammonds and Hertz. There you go. Thank y'all very much. Okay, and what's the pleasure of the board? Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the 2024 legislative agenda and send it to our Virginia General Assembly representatives.
Second. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your hand. 5, 1 absent. Okay, so let's move on to item number 11, which considerations of a resolution adoption of the County Emergency Operation Plan, Public Safety. We've got Mr. Tatum here also. If there's Mr. Powell, I think you have a background.
Public Safety Director Matt Tatum is requesting the board adopt the proposed resolution regarding the county's emergency operation plan. The plan is required by state code to be updated every 4 years and must be submitted by the end of this year to the Virginia Department of Emergency Management. The plan has been updated to reflect changes recommended by the Virginia Department of Emergency Management and other best practices, and the proposed EOP was uploaded to the board's shared file for review and consideration prior to today's meeting, and Mr. Tatum is here should the board have any questions.
Board members have any questions for Mr. Tatum? If not, then what's the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion to approve the resolution adopting the county's emergency operations plan as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your hand. 5, 1 absent. And that takes us up to item number 12. Let me go back to that. Let me get back to it right quick here. Which is our closed meeting. Well, excuse me, item number 12 is our informational items from the board. And we'll start with Mr. Ryan, if he has any comments.
No, sir.
Yeah, well, I just want to mention one thing. I want to thank, the county and Ms. Jennifer for assisting us in getting to the VACO conference, the Virginia Association of Counties, and a lot of things resonated with me. But one thing that resonated with me was one of the leaders of VACO mentioned that it shouldn't be about politics, but about the best interests of people. But yet, and even today, not a knock on what you all said, but it's always how many Republicans, how many Democrats, and this and that. But if we're looking at what's in the best interest of people, we're looking at people, and we're looking at what we should do, what's best, regardless of our political beliefs and philosophies. And I hope that we can all take on that approach, that if there's an issue, I may stand a certain way with a certain party, but poverty is poverty. Drugs are drugs. Underpaid is underpaid, and it doesn't matter where I stand politically, but we need to look at the people. And that was the one thing I took away from VACO, and just wanted to make sure I shared that so that we could all hear that tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Dillon.
Yes, sir.
Going right on down the line, I did go to VACO also, and it was a good conference this year. We had some excellent classes that we went to, and I can tell you that the big money's up north. That's why we have to fight so hard down south to try to get anything down here, is because it seems like that they rule the nest up north. But we did have some good discussions, and there was a lot of people from our area that was up there, and we had some good representation. So I do believe some good things will come out of that vehicle conference that we had. And we'll just have to see what this year brings. You know, we've got a mixed up government right now. We just need to get things back on order. But myself personally, and I'm no Mr. Slaughter here, this is probably his last vehicle conference.
Yeah.
And him and his wife was there, and but we had a great time. Ms. Buchanan?
Maybe I can get through it without coffee, but Ms. Hertz, it's on. Ms. Hertz made the comment about the meeting at Ferry Stone in regard to the Mayo River Park. I was very, I felt good about that meeting. I did. And I think that there was a lot of good vibes in the room that night. And I think that as we continue forward with this project, I think it's going to be sooner than later. And that's what I'm keeping my fingers crossed there for that park. So Dale might have some comment in his briefings here in just a few moments, but I felt good about that meeting.
Okay.
I won't say any more.
All right.
Tommy?
I'm sorry. Tommy?
Well, like I say, the conference was very good, and I've been to a bunch of them, but the last two before this one, I told them if that's all I had to offer, I wouldn't be back. We had to go to Hampton and Richmond because of the homestead being under renovation and stuff, but they got it renovated and they got us back in. They had a little problems. The biggest thing I seen was they were down on help a little, which made things a little slower than it had been in the years past. But everything was nice. It was a good conference, and glad to see it's back there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, well, if I could get someone to please read the information before we go into closed meetings.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we go into closed session under 2.23711A1 for discussion of appointees to the Industrial Development Authority, Public Service Authority, Community Policy and Management Team, Western Virginia Emergency Medical Services Council, Incorporated, West Piedmont Planning District Commission, and the Patrick Henry Community College Board. 2.23711A7 for discussion of pending legal matters. 2.23711A3 for discussion of the acquisition, disposal of real estate, and 2.23711A5 for discussion of as yet unannounced industry.
So we have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second, 5 and 1 absent. Okay, we'll meet upstairs in about 5 minutes, and we'll reconvene back at 6 p.m. tonight.
Closed meeting on a motion by Mr. Zaire, second by Mr. Slaughter. Mr. Powell, will you poll the board, please?
Yes, sir. Board members, to the best of your knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under Code of Virginia Section 2.2-3711 are heard, discussed, or considered in closed meeting. How do you vote? Mr. Adams?
In full disclosure, I wasn't there for the entire closed meeting, but the portion it was, yes, sir.
Mr. Slaughter?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Buchanan?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Bryant?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Dillard?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Buchanan, I believe that you have board appointment for the board's consideration.
Yes, sir. I move that the board reappoint Mike Harris and Kathy Ray to the Public Service Authority Board for a 4-year term expiring January 5th, 2028.
Second.
Got a motion second. All in favor? It is 6-0. Jennifer. Mr. Slaughter, I believe that you have an appointment for the board's consideration from the Community Policy and Management Team.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to nominate Billy Martin, is that the name? For a 2-year term on the Community Policy and Management Team.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. And again, let me make sure I understand that. Billy?
Billy Martin.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion?
Excuse me, Billy White.
Billy White.
That's what I thought, Billy White.
That's what I was reading, but I heard something else, so that's why I wanted to clarify.
Well, I was having Deborah to check on it because I thought that's what it was. Billy White.
All in favor? It is 6-0, Jennifer. And Mr. Dillard, I believe for the Western Virginia Emergency Medical Services Council, you have an appointment.
Yes, sir. I would like to make a motion to reappoint Mr. Matt Tatum to the Western Virginia Emergency Medical Services Council Incorporated for a 3-year term beginning January 1st, 2024, ending December 31st, 2026.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? It is 6-0, Jennifer. Mr. Zaire, in regard to the West Piedmont Planning District Commission Technical Advisory Committee, I believe that you have some
Yes,
appointments for
Mr.
the
Chairman, I
board's consideration.
move we reappoint Lee Clark as the primary and Brian McAlexander as the alternate for a term expiring December 31st, 2027.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? It is 6-0, Jennifer. Mr. Wagner, do you have any items of business that we need to consider prior to a recess?
Quick item, if I may. Just a reminder, the next business meeting is scheduled for December 19th, which is the third Monday of the month. And then also nominations are now being accepted for the 23rd Annual Jack Dolan Community Service Award until December 29th at 12 p.m.
Okay. Board members, do you have any other items that we need to consider prior to a recess? If none, we will stand in recess until our 6 p.m. Session that we will start promptly. I'll call the 6 p.m. session of the November 28, 2023 meeting of the Henry County Board of Supervisors back to order from our recess of the afternoon session. I'd like to welcome all of our visitors. Remind you, if you want to address the board specifically at any of our regular meetings, you'll need to sign up 7 days in advance of that meeting to be put on the agenda. The county administrator is the contact person for the board. However, the public may address the board under the agenda item, matters presented by the public, later in this meeting as agenda item number 18. Again, welcome everyone. We're glad to see a room full tonight, and I realize that we've got a couple things at hand that we'll take care of with our youth in the room, and thank you so much for being here and participating in your county government. Agenda item 14, General Highway Matters. We have with us Lisa Hughes and David Kaiser from VDOT. Lisa, welcome.
Mr. Adams, could you check to make sure your mic is on?
Fully closed.
Okay.
Okay, I've got 2 projects I'd like to brief the board on. One is coming up pretty quick. It'll be advertised for bids next month, and that's the intersection improvements there at Dyer Street and the Speedway Bojangles. That's at the VDOT residency office. And the improvements are actually minor, but what it's called, it's called a through cut. And traffic will not be allowed to cross from one side of the road to the other. From Bojangles straight across to Weeping-Willow Lane or Dyer Street, or vice versa from Dyer Street to Speedway. And what that does, that eliminates a signal phase. And the intent of that is to keep traffic on 220 flowing better, more efficiently. And actually, it is part of a corridor-wide project that includes 6 other intersections. in Roanoke and Franklin County. I've got a list of them. You get up at the Home Depot, Crossroads Circle in Roanoke County, Buck Mountain Road, Indian Grave Road, Wirtz Road in Franklin County, and Suntag Road in Franklin County. But all those 7 intersections will be included in this project, and again, it's to improve the efficiency on 220. And that project will be advertised next month in December. The second one is we'll be posting a willingness to hold a public hearing on the project in Laurel Park at 58 in Dogwood Lane. Then that was one of the county's, one of your all smart scale projects. It was to improve traffic flow coming out of Laurel Park Middle School. And what that does, it adds a right turn lane onto Dogwood Lane, and it widens Dogwood Lane itself to allow for 2 lanes coming out, one for right and then the other for straight through. So that should improve the efficiency of that intersection. And actually, the construction is still a couple years off, so we have to get right of way to build that. But anyway, that's coming. And let's see, and we'll finish up the year with our normal maintenance. You know, we're still finishing mowing our secondaries and probably start on the bypass again, getting the slopes and making everything look nice.
Lisa, would you go back to that first project there at the
Yes.
Dodge store and explain what VDOT is planning on doing?
Yes, the signals there'll be very little, you see very little change. There'll be a median so that you can do everything you do now except drive straight across.
Straight across from
Dyer
Dodge.
Street to the Speedway Center. And
Okay.
from the Speedway Center back to Dyer Street. That eliminates a signal phase. And it makes that intersection, those signals, the remaining phases change quicker and allow traffic on 220 to move. And what we found out in all these intersections that I named for you, we were allowing time for that signal phase that was serving very little traffic. So eliminating that straight through movement should have very little impact. And there's ways to go in and out without impacts. If you're coming out of the Speedway, you can go right and come back through the food line and go where you need to go. If you're coming out of Dyer Street and want to go to the Speedway Center, you just go left and go to that other entrance.
Okay.
They have 2. So I think it'll be very little impact to the businesses.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask a question. I'm a visual person. As we develop these projects, are there ways we could get visuals of those so that as we're explaining to our community members, you know, we explain it properly and folk can see exactly what's going to happen?
I sure can, and I've got a sketch that I was going to send to Mr. Wagner when we got closer to advertising the willingness, which would be December 7th. But I'll go ahead and send that to him and make sure you all are aware.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any items for Ms. Hughes? Thank you. Agenda item number 15, we have presentations by Parks and Rec, and we have with us from the Parks and Rec Department, Mr. Daniel Reynolds. Mr. Reynolds.
So we just wrapped up our fall season, which is football and girls basketball. Our season starts in September. We play September, October, and into November. So it's a good chunk of time that these kids and parents and coaches are giving up to play. We'll start with our junior girls basketball team. So if they want to come on up, it's our Carver, Rich Acres, Samuel, Stanleytown team. Coached by Brian Rohr and Cliff Rohr. Next up is our girls senior league. The Law Park 1 team won the regular season and the tournament. So any members of the Law Park 1 team can come on up, coached by Jackie Dalton.
Most of our girls played for Law Park, so we can get everybody out today. 3, 2.
Next up is our flag football champs from Drew Mason. So any members of the Drew Mason flag team, come on up. They're coached by Zeb Atkins, Brian Zaire. The last team we have tonight is our junior tackle football team. They're the Meadowview junior tackle team coached by Adam Atkins, Steve Marion. Come on up, guys.
This recognition of our teams was brought to the board's attention over a year ago by Mr. Dillard, and I'm going to ask him to offer any comments of the importance of team sports in our community.
Yeah, well, first of all, I have to let the coaches over here in the corner know we can't taint these kids with that Carolina. That's not Carolina blue. That is Lancer blue. That's Laurel Park blue. So don't try to infiltrate these kids' minds with that stuff, okay? All right, we're going to make sure, Daniel, that we take that Tar Heel stuff away next year. No, sir. No, sir. We're going to, I make a motion. No, seriously, I want to congratulate all of you young folk for your effort, your sportsmanship, the commitment that it takes to show up at practice, to show up at your ball games, the teamwork that it takes. And I hope that, you know, don't get the sports out of it, but get the life out of it. Understand that what you do out there on that basketball court, what you do on the football field, if you take those same skills into life, when you're communicating with folk, you'll have a very successful life. Just like it takes somebody to assist you, sometimes get a basket, you know, sometimes people have to assist you in life. You know, just like it takes for other people to do their part, for you to do your part, same thing in life. So let's get those lessons out of sports. Those of us who can go to the WNBA, go to the NFL, it's going to happen, but all of us are going to live. All of us are going to have to be in relationships. All of us are going to have jobs. All of us will be teammates of some nature. So use those skills. And I encourage the coaches, as you're instilling the athletic abilities in these students, take opportunities to, use it to help them with their life skills and to be better people, better citizens. And I think that's the number one thing that we should get out of sports. The other stuff will take care of itself. If you're a good person, you're a good athlete, you'll get the scholarships, you'll go to the pros. But if you're a good person, you can be an effective citizen. And Dale Wagner will like this one. You will be a productive, tax-paying citizen of Henry County, and we definitely want that. So congratulations, commend you, and be sure to thank your parents and your coaches before you leave tonight.
Thank you. With that, we do have other business tonight. I completely understand the anxiousness of all of our youth here tonight to get home and to do homework and things of that sort. If you leave, please do so quietly and respectfully, because we will continue with the meeting. And our next agenda item is a public hearing for a proposed siting agreement with Rocky Ford Solar Energy LLC. To give us the background on this, we have our county attorney, Mr. George Lyle. Mr. Lyle, if you'll give them about another 30 seconds and that way you'll have uninterrupted time.
That's the same guy that has the soap on. Over there to your left. Turn your mic off.
Okay, Mr. Lyle, I think you can begin.
Rocky Ford Solar Energy plans a solar energy generation facility at the intersection of Mountain Valley Road and Dees Road in the Irishwood District of Henry County. To date, the company has gone through the process, and the Board of Zoning Appeals for Henry County has conducted public hearings and issued a special use permit. A site plan has been submitted and approved to the Planning and Zoning Department, and the project, as proposed, complies with all aspects of the county's solar ordinance as adopted by this board. The last step in the process is to enter into a siting agreement with the county through this board. Through the county administrator and myself negotiated with representatives from Rocky Ford, and we reached the agreement that has been submitted and properly advertised for a public hearing tonight. There is one correction I would note. There is a typo on, I think it's Exhibit B of the agreement. It correctly states, so the siting agreement calls for cash payments at from the company to the county at certain stages of the development. The last payment, it says, will be an amount of $20,000 times the megawatts. This is a 90 megawatt project. The written amount is correct, but the typographical error is in the numerical amount, which says 207,500. That's incorrect. It should be 20,000 to match the typed out word.
All right, thank you, Mr. Lyle. I'll open public hearing to take input on this proposed siting agreement at 6:16 p.m. Is there anyone desiring to address the board in this public hearing? I see one hand, I see two hands, I see three hands. I have a brief board policy statement that goes for all of our public hearings and matters presented by the public. If you'll indulge and give me just a moment to read. This is a time for public comment. We welcome your participation in tonight's meeting. We're here to listen to you. If you care to address the board, come to the podium, state your name, subject matter, and district in which you live. By coming to the podium, you've agreed that you will exhibit respect for the board and its members. You will receive the same consideration from the board, and please try to keep your presentation to no more than 5 minutes. I saw three hands. I'll start over here.
Good evening, Supervisors. My name is Skylar Zunk. I'm here on behalf of Energy Right, a nonprofit organization that a colleague and myself founded about a year and a half ago to bring a rural conservative voice to clean energy conversations that are happening all across Virginia. Also wear another hat in Richmond. Governor Youngkin appointed me to be on the Virginia Solar Development and Energy Storage Authority, which helps deploy clean energy across Virginia. The whole point of Energy Right is to educate rural Virginia on the best practices surrounding clean energy. We're engaged in 60+ counties all across the Commonwealth, doing our best to engage with folks at the local level, community leaders, civic organizations, you name it, to share our perspective on clean energy developed the right way. What do I mean by that? We're, of course, talking about property rights, respecting landowners' rights to develop their property as they see fit, but it also means respecting neighbors. It also means respecting the rights of folks to live peacefully in their communities alongside these projects when they're sited properly. I know this project already has a permit in place, but tonight we're going to be talking about the economic package for the county. These projects represent millions upon millions of dollars invested into rural Virginia. And if we harness that properly, that means real potential for our communities. This project, of course, will provide $1.8 million in local tax revenue that you all and your community members can decide on how to spend. We're a big fan of tax cuts being brought to local communities as a result of these tax payments, but you can also invest them in your schools and your first responders. These are energy generation facilities that should be paying their fair share, and it's up to folks like you to decide how best to spend that money as good stewards of your community. This also means $46 million invested right here in Henry County. We, of course, hope the majority of that money will be spent locally on goods and services to build this project and to operate it long term. We're members of the Martinsville-Henry County Chamber of Commerce and have encouraged members of the Chamber to join another organization called the South Central Virginia Business Alliance, which exists solely to connect local businesses with opportunities in a growing clean energy industry. So with that, it's very nice to be with you this evening. Thank you so much for your diligent work on behalf of clean energy and the landowners involved in many of these projects. We stand to be a resource for the county however we possibly can. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Okay, I saw a hand in the back. Yes, sir.
I'm John Ashman. Can everyone hear me? I'm from Martinsville. I'm a member of the Citizens Climate Lobby. I don't know if you've ever heard of that group. It consists of about 400,000 volunteers throughout the country. We're very concerned about climate change and the transition to decarbonize. I appreciate the efforts of this group here. I feel like the choice is to continue using fossil fuels or converting over to clean, renewable energy. And it's extremely important. And I'm here to support this project and hope that this group will move forward. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. And so another hand here. Yes.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. My name is Alexandra Consolino, and I lead Invenergy's development efforts across the Commonwealth, and I'm the main project developer for the Rocky Ford Solar Project here in Henry County. Invenergy is the largest US-based privately held energy company in North America. Our team has been developing the Rocky Ford Solar Project since 2019, and over the last 4 years, we have worked closely with members of the community to ensure this project fits the needs of the community. We've also worked extensively with county officials to ensure that our project is in full compliance with the county code and solar ordinance. Our team has greatly enjoyed working with the diligent county officials here in Henry County, and we see the execution of this siting agreement as the next step in continuing our long and successful partnership with Henry County. As Mr. Lyle mentioned, Rocky Ford is located in Axton at the crossroads of Mountain Valley Road and Dees Road and is up to 90 megawatts in size. Rocky Ford is also a fully permitted project. We received our special use permit from Henry County back in January of 2022, and then we received final site plan approval from the county back in January of 2023. And then just as of last month in October of 2023, the Virginia State Corporation Commission issued Rocky Ford its certificates for public convenience and necessity. So with all necessary county and state level permits in hand, Invenergy understands that execution of a siting agreement with the county is the next step in the development of this project. Over the past several months, we've worked very closely with Mr. Lyle and Mr. Wagner to negotiate the terms of the siting agreement. And as Mr. Lyle described, the Rocky Ford siting agreement is very straightforward. We are simply proposing capital payments equal to $20,000 per installed megawatt for the county to use at its sole discretion. Our project is in 100% compliance with the county code and solar ordinance, so there's no ask or request for waivers or exemptions of the solar ordinance. So with all of this information in mind, I respectfully request that the board vote to execute the siting agreement tonight so we can start bringing some of the economic benefits of solar to Henry County. Thank you for the time this evening, and thank you to all the county staff for your time, help, and thoughtfulness through this process.
Are there others desiring to address the board on this public hearing? Any others? Seeing and hearing no indication as such, I will close the public hearing at 6:24. The siting agreement, as been mentioned multiple times, affects all of Henry County, but the project itself is located in the Irishwood District. Mr. Dillard, would you care to offer to the board any type of motion?
Yes, sir. I'd like to make a motion to accept the siting agreement from Rocky Ford Solar Energy LLC as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Is 6-0, Jennifer. That takes us to agenda item number 17, public hearing, consideration of changes to Commonwealth Crossing Business Center, known as CCBC, revenue sharing agreement. Again, to give us background on this is County Attorney George Lyle. Mr. Lyle.
At a special meeting on July 11th, 2023, the Board of Supervisors, Martinsville City Council, and the Henry County Industrial Development Authority approved draft changes to the Commonwealth Crossing Business Center revenue sharing agreement. The suggested changes include creating two separate revenue sharing agreements to be known as the Patriot Center Expansion Revenue Sharing Agreement and the Commonwealth Crossing Business Center Revenue Sharing Agreement. The changes also included a recommendation to create a first amendment to the restated Commonwealth Crossing Business Center Revenue Sharing Agreement to ensure adequate funding for future development or marketing of the sites within CCBC. The draft changes were forwarded to the Commission on Local Government for review as required by the Code of Virginia. On November 6th, the Commission on Local Government issued its findings and endorsed the changes. As a final step, the changes must be approved in the same fashion we would approve the ordinance by both the Board of Supervisors and City Council. We'll have to adopt it. City Council, Martinsville City Council has it on their agenda to conduct a similar public hearing and consider passing the changes, and it's staff's recommendation that we adopt the changes to the revenue sharing agreement.
I'll open the public hearing to take input on this consideration of changes to the Commonwealth Crossing revenue sharing agreement. I'll open that at 6:27 p.m. Is there anyone desiring to address the board during this public hearing? Seeing and hearing no indication as such, I will close the public hearing at 6:27 p.m. Ms. Wagner, is it any detail of desired motion other than what the board has in its background material?
That motion is sufficient.
Okay. What is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the changes to the revenue sharing agreement as presented, contingent upon approval of the City Council and the Industrial Department Authority.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the changes. Any discussion? All in favor? Is 6-0, Jennifer. That takes us to agenda item 18, matters presented by the public. Is there anyone desiring to address the board tonight under matters presented by the public? Again, seeing and hearing no indication as such, that will take us to agenda item 19 if a board member desires to make a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Second.
We formally have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor? 6-0, Jennifer. Everyone have a good evening. Thank you for coming out tonight.